This is IGN. Slit happens. This is your IGN review of Slitterhead by Tristan Ogilvy. Given its interesting body-swapping system, gnarly blood-based weaponry, creepy Lovecraftian monsters, and the fact that it's sprung forth from the mind behind the original Silent Hill, Slitterhead certainly sounds like an action horror game that could be razor-sharp. Unfortunately, while this time-looping murder mystery set in the neon-lit streets of a fictionalized Hong Kong serves up a solid slash-em-up combat system, its story has been hacked to the bone. Its enemy variety is surprisingly sparse, and its uninspired mission objectives are repeated to a truly tiresome degree. As it turns out, Slitterhead isn't just an adventure that's frequently out of body, it's also one that's quickly out of ideas. It's a real shame, too, since Slitterhead's intriguing premise certainly got its hooks into me early. After the bodies of local citizens are discovered in the back alleys of the Kowloon slums with holes in their heads where their brains used to be, we're cast in the role of a mysterious spiritual entity known only as the Night Owl, acting as a disembodied detective in an effort to uncover a murderous menace known as the Slitterheads, who can disguise themselves in human form. To do so, we're free to hop in and out of almost every person within a small radius, temporarily taking control of human hosts in order to hunt for clues through back alleys and brothels, in providing us with some interesting ways to infiltrate otherwise off-limits locations, by beaming straight into another body through an open window or the bars of a locked gate, for example. These easily manipulated meat sacks are basic in appearance and wooden in their movement, which perhaps makes some sort of sense given that they're basically just mind-controlled marionettes. Unlike the similar crowdsourcing system in Watch Dogs Legion, there are no discernible skills or traits that distinguish one controllable citizen from another. That is, with the exception of the small cast of unique playable characters known as rarities. As the investigation progresses, the Night Owl comes across certain victims that are near death. Once possessed, their mortal wounds transform into weapons as their mangled arms bleed into the form of Wolverine-like claws, spears, and literal plasma swords, making them vital vessels for taking on any Slitterheads you expose along the way. The growing party of rarities can be separated into pairs to accompany you into each mission, and Slitterheads' story loops several times around the same 3-day sequence, pulling you back to revisit events in its timeline in an effort to unmask the perpetrators behind certain crimes and potentially prevent them from ever happening. That unfortunately sounds a lot more interesting than it actually proves to be, since it involves retracing steps through a lot of the same areas and redoing a lot of the same simple tasks, like following ghostly apparitions along a preset path to piece together a Slitterhead's victim's final moments. In between each mission, you get to spend a little bit of time with your expanding roster of rarities, but unfortunately, these exposition-dumping conversations are so poorly presented that I struggled to find anything of substance to really latch onto. They're delivered in static snippets of text over repeated and rudimentary character animations, and I basically just mindlessly paged through them long enough to trigger the next story chapter. Even if I'd been able to better buy into each rarity's individual plights, I don't think it would have been worth my while, since this roughly 13-hour time-traveling tale culminates in such a deflating and futile finale that it made me wish I could have looped back around to the beginning of my playthrough and prevented myself from ever hitting the start button on the title screen. It's not even remotely scary either, which comes as a bit of a surprise given that it's a horror adventure that's been developed under the watchful eye of Keiichiro Toyama, director of the original Silent Hill. Combat is not without its charms, however. A simple one-button attack combo allows you to slit a head, throat, or whichever enemy body part comes within swinging distance of your bloody blades, but there's more to Slitterheads' fighting than first meets the eye. For starters, you can quickly beam between bystanders gathered around each arena in order to catch an enemy off guard with an attack from the rear, using the crowd to chip away at a target like some sort of GoFundMe for fisticuffs. Non-rarity humans have minimal amounts of health, so I only ever stayed in control of them for short bursts before zipping back to my chosen rarity to unleash more damaging strikes, but hopping back and forth between them is a great way to draw enemy heat away and make Slitterhead feel a bit like a supernatural spin on the real-time character-swapping battles of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Slitterhead features some interesting body-swapping exploration and a unique blood-based battle system, but it never fully capitalizes on either of them due to its small handful of repeated level settings and largely indistinguishable enemy encounters. Its story is disappointingly primitive in its presentation, and its time-looping structure only really serves as a feeble attempt to mask the fact that it takes about 1 hour's worth of story mission ideas and repeats them incessantly across its 13-hour duration. Like a bloody blade worn down by a few too many battles, Slitterhead grows increasingly dull over time and ultimately just doesn't cut it. Slitterhead's IGN score? 5. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest Slitterhead updates, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.